Queen Xylara stood before the tall windows of her private chamber, watching the three suns set over the capital city of Zareth Prime. The light painted everything in shades of purple and gold. Beautiful, she thought, but beauty meant nothing when your empire was bleeding resources and allies. The war with the Kreeth Dominion had ended 6 months ago. On paper, the Zarethians had won. In reality, everyone had lost. Planets were scorched. Trade routes were destroyed. Thousands of ships floated dead in space. And her people, her proud ancient people, were struggling to rebuild. That was why the humans were coming. Xylara turned away from the window. Her advisor, Lord Velric, stood waiting near the door. His blue skin looked almost gray in the fading light. He was old, even by Zarethian standards, and the war had aged him more. "The human delegation has arrived, Your Majesty," Velric said. "They are waiting in the Grand Hall." "Humans," Xylara said softly. She walked to her mirror and checked her appearance. The crown of her office sat perfectly on her head, its crystalline structure catching the light. Her robes were formal, heavy with the weight of tradition. She looked every bit the queen she was supposed to be. "Tell me again why we need them." Velric's expression didn't change. "Because they were the only ones who came when we called for help." That was true. When the Kreeth had invaded 3 years ago, Xylara had sent messages to every allied empire. The Collective of Worlds had sent sympathies, but no ships. The Federation had offered to mediate peace talks. The Concordat had simply stopped answering messages. But the humans, these newcomers who had barely left their own star system 50 years ago, had sent warships. Not many, perhaps 50 vessels compared to the thousands the Zarethians deployed. But they had come, and they had fought. "They are primitive," Xylara said. It was what everyone said about humans. They used chemical propulsion when everyone else had quantum drives. They still fought with kinetic weapons instead of plasma. Their medicine was crude, their technology laughable. "They are brave," Velric corrected gently. "And we need brave allies right now." Xylara nodded. She could not argue with that. She left her chamber with Velric following behind. The palace corridors were long and empty. There had been a time when these halls were filled with nobles and visitors from 100 worlds. Now, they felt like a tomb. The Grand Hall was different. It was full of people, of movement, of life. Zarethian nobles stood in their formal groups, watching everything with careful eyes. Her own guards lined the walls, their weapons ready but lowered. And in the center of it all stood the human delegation. There were 10 of them. Most wore strange suits in dark colors, with small symbols on their chests. Diplomats, Xylara guessed. But 5 of them stood slightly apart, and these 5 wore different clothes entirely. Armor, she realized. Not the energy shields her guards used, but actual physical armor. And they carried weapons. Big, blocky weapons that looked heavy and brutal. Security detail. The humans had brought their own guards. Xylara began walking down the long carpet toward the delegation. Every eye in the room turned to watch her. She kept her face calm, her walk steady. She had done this 1,000 times before. This was just another negotiation, another treaty, another alliance of convenience. Then she saw him. One of the human guards stood at attention with the others. He was tall, perhaps a bit shorter than a Zarethian, but tall for a human. His armor was dark green with scratches and wear marks that showed he had seen combat. His weapon was held across his chest in a ready position. His face was set in a professional mask, eyes scanning the room for threats. But his face, Xylara's step faltered. Just for a moment, just for a single heartbeat, but she faltered. Because the human guard's face looked like Theron's dot, it was impossible. Humans and Zarethians were completely different species. Theron had been her husband, her prince consort, and he had died 5 years ago on a battlefield against the Kreeth. She had held his funeral. She had scattered his ashes in the royal gardens. He was gone, but this human had Theron's strong jaw. The same broad shoulders. The same way of standing, weight slightly forward, ready to move. Even the expression in his eyes, serious and watchful and kind all at once, reminded her of her dead husband. "Your Majesty?" Velric whispered from behind her. "Are you well?" Xylora forced herself to keep walking. She was a queen. She did not stop or stare or show weakness in front of her court. But her hearts were beating too fast, and her hands wanted to shake. She reached the human delegation. The lead diplomat, a woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, bowed in the Zarethian style. It was clumsy, but respectful. "Your Majesty," the diplomat said in accented but clear Zarethian. "I am Ambassador Chen Li of the Terran Coalition. We are honored to stand before you." "Ambassador," Xylora replied, and was proud that her voice stayed steady. "The Zarethian Empire welcomes you. Your people's courage during our darkest hour will not be forgotten." "We honor our promises," Ambassador Chen said simply. "And we remember our friends." They went through the formal greetings. Each diplomat was introduced. Each bowed. Each said something appropriate. Xylora responded to each one automatically, her training taking over while her mind spun. Finally, Ambassador Chen gestured to the security team. "With your permission, Your Majesty, I would like to introduce Captain Marcus Chun of the Coalition Defense Force. He commands our security detail." The guard who looked like Theron stepped forward. Up close, the resemblance was less exact but still unsettling. His eyes were brown instead of silver. His skin was darker, covered with small scars. But the way he moved, the way he carried himself, it was all so familiar. "Your Majesty," Captain Chun said. His voice was different from Theron's, deeper and rougher. He bowed, and the movement was military precise rather than courtly. "I served in the Zarethian theater during the war. It is an honor to return here in peace. You fought for us?" Xylora asked. The words came out before she could stop them. "Yes, Your Majesty." Something flickered in his eyes. Sadness, maybe, or memory. "Battle of Zarian 7. I was with the 42nd Rangers." Xylora knew that battle. It was where 3 human ships had held off an entire Kreeth battle group while Zarethian civilians evacuated a colony world. All 3 ships had been destroyed. The death toll had been terrible. "You survived," she said quietly. "I did." Marcus Chun's jaw tightened. "Many didn't." "No," Xylora agreed. "Many didn't." They stood there for a moment, queen and soldier, both remembering a war that had taken too much from them both. Around them, the court watched with curious eyes. Velric coughed softly, reminding her that protocols must be followed. "We have prepared quarters for your delegation," Xylora said, pulling herself back to the present. "Tomorrow we will begin formal negotiations. Tonight, please rest and enjoy our hospitality." Ambassador Chun bowed again. "Thank you, Your Majesty. We look forward to building a strong friendship between our peoples." As the humans were led away by palace staff, Xylora found her eyes following Captain Marcus Chun. He walked like a warrior, alert and ready. Like Theron used to walk. "Your Majesty," Velric said quietly once they were alone. "You saw something. What was it?" Xylora was silent for a long moment. Then she shook her head. "Ghosts, old friend. I saw ghosts where there should be none." But as she walked back to her private chambers, she could not stop thinking about the human guard with her dead husband's face. Xylora could not sleep. She lay in her royal bed, staring at the ceiling where holographic stars slowly drifted. Theron had programmed them years ago to show the constellation patterns of both their homeworld and dozens of other systems. He had loved the stars. She had not looked at them in 5 years. Now she could not look away. Theron had been a prince from a smaller Zerethian house. Their marriage was arranged when she was young, meant to unite political factions. She had expected duty and nothing more. What she got was friendship, then respect, then something deeper that did not have easy words. He made her laugh. In a court full of schemes and careful words, he had been honest. When she became queen after her father's death, he had stood beside her without trying to take power for himself. He had been content to be her consort, her partner, her friend. Then the war came. Theron had commanded the Third Fleet. He had died when his flagship was destroyed, covering a retreat. They recovered his body 3 days later. By Zerethian tradition, she could not cry at his funeral. A queen did not show such weakness. She had not cried since. Not once. She locked that part of herself away and became the cold, efficient ruler her empire needed until yesterday, when she saw a human guard with Theron's face. When dawn broke, Zilor rose and dressed. She had decisions to make. The negotiations would begin today, and she needed to focus. But she kept thinking about Captain Marcus Chun and the way he had said, "Many didn't," when talking about the dead. "Your Majesty," Velric said when she entered her office. "I took the liberty of requesting personnel files on the human delegation." He held out a data tablet. Xylora took it and read. Captain Marcus Chun, age 32. Born on Mars colony, recruited into the Coalition Defense Force at 18. Excellent service record with multiple commendations. Volunteered for the Zerethian Relief Fleet against direct orders from Earth's government. He volunteered? Xylora asked. Many of the humans did, Velric said. Their government wanted to stay neutral, but individual humans could choose to fight. Thousands did. Xylora kept reading. Battle of Zarian 7. Chun's unit, the 42nd Rangers, had been stationed on one of the 3 ships sent to protect the evacuation. When the Kreef attacked, the Rangers had boarded one of the civilian transports to provide security. The ship made it out. The 3 military vessels did not. His entire unit died, Xylora said quietly. He was the only survivor because he was protecting civilians. Yes, Velric said. The humans call it Semper Fidelis, always faithful. They value loyalty very highly. How highly? The human military requested that Captain Chun receive our Star of Valor for his actions. We awarded it posthumously to his unit. He carries their tags. Velric gestured to the file. Small metal pieces with their names. He wears them always. Xylora closed her eyes. 23 names. 23 humans who had died protecting Zerethian children they had never met, on a world they had never seen before, in a war that was not theirs. I want him assigned as security liaison for my personal detail, she said suddenly. Velric's eyebrows rose. Your Majesty? The negotiations will be delicate. If we are to build trust with the humans, I should have one close by. Someone who understands both military and diplomatic concerns. The words came out smoothly, logical, and reasonable. They were not the real reason, but they would work. As you wish, Velric said slowly. Though the court will talk. The court always talks. 2 hours later, Marcus Chun stood in her office. He looked uncomfortable in the formal palace setting, like a wolf brought into a garden. His armor was polished but well used. The tags Velric had mentioned hung around his neck on a thin chain. Your Majesty, he said, bowing. Ambassador Chun said you requested my presence. Captain Chun, Xylora said. She sat behind her desk, trying to appear relaxed. I want you to serve as security liaison during these negotiations. You will coordinate between your forces and mine. I'm honored, Your Majesty, but I'm not sure I'm the best choice. I'm a soldier, not a diplomat. That is exactly why I want you. Xylora stood and walked to the window. The city below was waking up, morning traffic filling the sky. Tell me, Captain, Why did you volunteer to fight in our war? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Permission to speak freely? Granted. Because it was right, he said simply. The Kreeth were butchering civilians. Your people called for help. Most of the galaxy turned away. That didn't sit right with me. Even though it meant disobeying your government? My government doesn't own my conscience, Your Majesty. I'm a soldier. I follow orders. But I'm also a human being, and sometimes being human means standing up even when you're ordered to sit down. Xylera turned to look at him. That is a very human attitude. Maybe, but I think it's what any good person would do, human or not. You lost your entire unit at Zarian 7. Pain crossed Marcus's face, quick and deep. Yes, ma'am. Yet you continue to serve. What else would I do? Marcus touched the tags around his neck unconsciously. They died doing something important. I survived. I owe it to them to keep going. Do you feel guilty for surviving? The question was too personal, too direct. Xylera saw Marcus tense. But he did not deflect or lie. Every day, he said quietly. But guilt is useless if it stops you from living. They wouldn't want that. So I carry their names, and I try to be worth the chance they gave me. Xylera found herself nodding. She understood that completely. Darren would not have wanted her to stop living either. But knowing that and doing it were different things. Tell me about humans, Captain, she said, changing the subject. Your people are new to the galaxy. Most species dismiss you as primitive. Yet you fought with great courage in our war. Marcus smiled slightly. We're good at fighting. Had a lot of practice. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. Wars, revolutions, conflicts big and small. We nearly destroyed ourselves a few times. That is not encouraging. No, but here's the thing. We always survived. Always rebuilt. We're stubborn that way. We don't know when to quit. He paused. My grandmother used to say humans are cockroaches. You can bomb us, starve us, hunt us, and we just keep coming back. That is a strange thing to be proud of. Maybe, but it means we don't give up on our friends either. When the Zarethian Empire needed help, a lot of humans thought it was crazy to get involved. Too far away. Not our problem. Too dangerous. But thousands of us went anyway because loyalty matters. Because some things are worth fighting for, even when the odds are bad. Xylera studied him carefully. You sound like someone I used to know. Your husband? Marcus asked, and Xylera's blood went cold. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I shouldn't have said that. But Ambassador Chun briefed us. We know about Prince Theron. The whole human fleet knew. He was respected. You knew of him? Every soldier in the relief fleet knew the story. A prince who gave up a safe palace position to command a warship. Who died protecting his people. That kind of courage crosses species lines, Your Majesty. Xylera's throat felt tight. What else do humans know about my husband? Marcus hesitated. Then he reached into a pocket and pulled out a small sealed envelope. I was going to request a formal audience eventually. I've been trying to get clearance for 5 years. But maybe now is the time. What is that? A message, Your Majesty. I was there at Zarian 7 for the civilian evacuation. But before that, my ship was part of the fleet that recovered Prince Theron's body from the battlefield. I was in the recovery team. Marcus held out the envelope with both hands, formal and respectful. He was still alive when we found him. Barely. He didn't make it back to our ship. But before he died, he asked me to deliver a message to his queen. This message. Xylera's hand shook as she took the envelope. The paper was old, creased from being carried for years. Her name was written on it in human script, careful and precise. Why didn't you deliver this before? She whispered. I tried, Your Majesty. I put in requests through official channels. But I was just a corporal then, and you were an empress at war. The requests were denied or ignored. Then the war ended and I went home. I kept trying, kept requesting permission. When this diplomatic mission was announced, I volunteered specifically to try again. Even if I couldn't give you the message directly, I thought maybe I could leave it at a memorial or something. You've carried this for 5 years? Across light years of space? I made a promise to a dying man, Marcus said simply. Humans keep their promises, especially to the dead. Xylera looked down at the envelope. Inside was Theron's last message to her. Words she had never heard, thoughts she never knew he had. 5 years later, delivered by a human soldier who looked like him, who fought like him, who understood duty like him. Thank you, Captain, she managed to say. You are dismissed. Marcus bowed and left. When the door closed, Xylera was alone with the envelope and 5 years of grief she had never allowed herself to feel. Her hands trembled as she opened it and began to read. The letter had been short. Theron's handwriting was shaky, written quickly by a dying man, but the words were clear. My dearest Xylera, if you read this, I am gone. Do not mourn too long. You were always stronger than you believed. I loved you for your strength, not for your crown. The Empire needs a queen who can feel, who can hope. Please, live. Not just rule. Live. With all my heart, Theron. Xylera had read it 10 times. Then she had locked it in her private safe and gone to the negotiations. She was a queen. She had duties. Personal feelings could wait, but they could not be forgotten. The negotiations lasted 3 days. The humans wanted trade access and shared military intelligence. The Xerethians needed resources and allies. It should have been simple, but politics was never simple. Noble houses argued about terms. Diplomats debated wording. Every sentence of the treaty was examined from 100 angles. Through it all, Marcus Chen stood at his post. He was professional, quiet, and watchful. But several times, Xylera caught him looking at her with concern in his eyes, as if he knew what that letter had said, as if he understood what it meant. On the 4th day, Xylera requested that Marcus join her for a walk in the royal gardens. Velric raised his eyebrows but said nothing. The court would definitely talk about this. The gardens were beautiful and empty. Most nobles preferred the climate-controlled atriums indoors. But Xylera had always loved this place. Theron had too. This is where we scattered his ashes, she said, as they walked past a fountain shaped like a sailing ship. He loved the sea. He grew up near the Southern Ocean. It's peaceful here, Marcus said. He kept a respectful distance, hands clasped behind his back in military rest position. You can relax, Captain. We are not on parade. Marcus smiled slightly, but did not change his posture. Old habits, Your Majesty. They walked in silence for a while. Xylera was not sure what she wanted to say. She only knew that talking to Marcus felt easier than talking to anyone else had in years. He told you to tell me to live, she finally said. Not just rule. Yes, ma'am. Do you think I am just ruling? Not living? Marcus chose his words carefully. I think you're doing what you have to do. Leading an empire during a crisis doesn't leave much room for personal time. But I also think grief doesn't go away just because you ignore it. It waits. Humans grieve differently than Xerethians. Maybe, but loss is loss. Pain is pain. Those are universal, I think. How do you handle it? Losing your unit? Marcus touched his tags again. It seemed to be an unconscious gesture, something he did when he thought of them. Badly at first. I was angry. At the Creath, at the universe, at myself for surviving. Then I realized that anger was just another way of not dealing with it. So I started talking to a counselor. Started letting myself remember them without feeling guilty. Started living again, like they would have wanted, That simple? No, Your Majesty. It's not simple at all. Some days are harder than others. But you keep going. That's what living is. You keep going. Xylera was about to respond when her communicator chimed. Valric's face appeared, urgent and worried. Your Majesty, we have a security alert. Multiple unknown contacts approaching the palace. What kind of contacts? We're not sure. They're using stealth technology. Very sophisticated. They've already passed the outer perimeter. Marcus's entire demeanor changed in an instant. The relaxed soldier became a coiled weapon. Your Majesty, we need to get you inside. Now. They ran. Xylera lifted her robes and sprinted across the garden with Marcus at her side. Behind them, she heard shouts and the sound of energy weapons charging. The palace guards had engaged something. They reached the garden entrance just as the first explosion rocked the western wall. Stone and metal flew through the air. Alarms began screaming throughout the palace. Kreeth! Someone shouted. Kreeth warriors in the palace! Marcus grabbed Xylera's arm and pulled her into the corridor. His weapon was in his hands, that big blocky human rifle. Is there a secure room? A panic room? The throne room, Xylera gasped. Heavy doors, reinforced walls. Go, I'll cover you. They ran through corridors filled with panicking nobles and servants. Cerethian guards were trying to organize a defense, but the attack was too sudden, too well coordinated. The Kreeth had known exactly where to strike. A group of Kreeth warriors burst from a side corridor. They were massive creatures, 8 feet tall with 4 arms and thick bio-armor covering their bodies. Their weapons were organic, part of their bodies, and they fired streams of corrosive plasma. The Cerethian guards fired back with their energy weapons. 2 Kreeth fell, but 3 more took their place. Marcus stepped forward and opened fire. His rifle made a deafening noise, loud and brutal, compared to the clean hum of energy weapons. But it worked. The kinetic rounds punched through Kreeth armor, spinning them around and dropping them hard. Go! Marcus shouted at Xylera. She ran. Behind her, she heard more gunfire, more screams. The palace was under full assault. Ambassador Chun and the other human guards were already at the throne room, setting up a defensive position. The heavy doors were open, designed to let Xylera in but keep enemies out. Your Majesty, Ambassador Chun said, relief clear on her face. Thank the stars. Where's Captain Chun? He's covering my retreat, Xylera said. She turned back to the corridor. He's still out there. He knows what he's doing. But Xylera found she could not leave. Could not just hide while Marcus fought. She stood at the doorway, watching Marcus came around the corner at a full run. Behind him, at least a dozen Kreeth warriors gave chase. He was firing backward, controlled bursts that dropped targets, but did not slow his movement. He was 20 feet from the throne room when plasma fire hit him. The first shot caught his left shoulder, burning through his armor. Marcus spun but stayed on his feet. The second shot hit his leg. He stumbled but kept moving. The third shot hit his back. Marcus fell. No! Xylera started forward, but Ambassador Chun grabbed her. Your Majesty, you can't. Xylera pulled free. She was running before she knew what she was doing. Running toward Marcus, toward the Kreeth, toward the danger. Marcus was trying to stand. His armor was burning, his body was torn, but he was still trying to stand. He raised his rifle with shaking hands and fired at the approaching Kreeth. Xylera reached him and grabbed his arm. Get up! Your Majesty, Marcus coughed, blood on his lips. You need to run. Not without you. The Kreeth were 15 feet away. 10 feet. Their weapons charging. Then the other human guards opened fire. The corridor became a storm of bullets and plasma. The humans had left their defensive position to save their captain and their queen. They advanced in a line, firing continuously, their faces set in expressions of absolute determination. The Kreeth warriors fell. Not retreated, fell. The humans shot them until they stopped moving, then shot them some more. Two humans grabbed Marcus and pulled him backward. Two more grabbed Xylara. They all retreated into the throne room and the heavy doors slammed shut. Medical kit. Someone shouted. They laid Marcus on the floor. His armor was melted in places and his wounds were severe. Zarethian guards and human soldiers worked together, applying emergency treatments. "You're going to be fine, Captain," Ambassador Chun said, her voice tight with worry. Marcus coughed again. Did the Queen? "I'm here," Xylara said, kneeling beside him. "I'm safe." "Good." Marcus's eyes were starting to close. "Promise. Kept." "Stay awake," Xylara ordered. "That's a royal command, Captain." Marcus smiled faintly. "Yes." "Your Majesty." The medical team arrived minutes later. They worked quickly, stabilizing Marcus and preparing him for transport to the medical wing. As they carried him away on a stretcher, Xylara stood and faced her remaining guards. "Status report," she demanded. "The attack is contained." "Your Majesty," Velric said, arriving with a squad of royal guards. 18 Kreeth infiltrators. All dead. They came in through the sewage systems and the maintenance tunnels. Someone gave them detailed palace schematics. "A traitor?" "We'll find them," Velric promised darkly. Xylara looked around the throne room. Dead Kreeth bodies lay in the corridor outside. Human and Zarethian guards stood together, watching for more threats. And somewhere in the palace, Marcus Chun was fighting for his life. "The humans saved us," she said quietly. "They fought like demons," one of her guards said with respect. "I've never seen anything like it. They don't retreat. They don't fear death." That human captain took 3 plasma hits and kept fighting. "He is brave," Xylara agreed. Then louder to all the guards. "All of them are brave. And they are our allies. Our friends. Remember this day. Remember who stood with us when death came calling." The guards saluted, human and Zarethian together. Xylara walked to the corridor and looked at the Kreeth bodies. This was not over. This was an assassination attempt, which meant the Kreeth were not done with their war. And it meant someone in her own palace had betrayed them. But right now, she had more immediate concerns. She turned to Ambassador Chun. "Take me to your captain." "Your Majesty, you should rest." "Take me to him," Xylara repeated. "He kept his promise to a dying man. The least I can do is keep watch while he fights to live." Ambassador Chun nodded. Together, they left the throne room and headed toward the medical wing, while around them, the palace slowly returned to order. The medical wing was filled with activity. Doctors moved between beds where wounded guards were being treated. The smell of antiseptic and burned flesh filled the air. But Xylara only had eyes for one bed. Marcus Chun lay in a regeneration pod, his body covered in medical sensors and treatment films. His chest rose and fell slowly. The doctors had said he was stable but critical. The plasma burns had done serious damage. He would live, but recovery would take time. Xylara sat in a chair beside the pod. She had been there for 6 hours. Nobles had come to check on her. Velric had tried to get her to rest. She had refused them all. "Your Majesty," Ambassador Chun said softly, sitting down beside her. "You don't have to stay. We have people watching him. I want to be here when he wakes." The ambassador was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "He's my nephew, you know, Marcus, my younger brother's son. He's been in the military since he was barely an adult. Always wanted to help people, protect people. Sometimes I think he has too much heart for this kind of work." "He saved my life," Xylara said. "He took 3 plasma burns protecting me." "That sounds like Marcus." He doesn't know how to do things halfway. Ambassador Chen smiled sadly. When his unit died at Zarian 7, we thought we'd lost him too. Not to death, but to grief. He blamed himself. Stopped eating, stopped talking. We were afraid he'd do something desperate. What changed? I don't know exactly. But one day, he requested access to classified files. Information about Prince Theron's death and recovery. He spent weeks going through everything. Then he filed his first formal request to deliver a message to you. He's been trying ever since. Xylera looked at Marcus's unconscious face. Even now, even hurt, and still, he looked so much like Theron. That message changed something for me. May I ask what it said? Theron told me to live. Not just rule. To live. Xylera's voice was soft. I have not been living. Not for 5 years. I have been surviving, existing, performing my duties. But not living. Grief is hard, Ambassador Chun said. Especially when you're not allowed to show it. Zarethian queens do not cry in public. We do not show weakness. That's a terrible rule. Xylera almost smiled. Perhaps. But it is our way. They sat in silence for a while. Other guards came and went. Velric arrived with updates on the investigation. They had found the traitor, a low-level security officer bribed by Kreeth agents. He had been arrested. More importantly, they had decoded messages from the Kreeth. The assassination was part of a larger plan. The Kreeth Dominion was preparing for another war. They had hoped that killing Xylera would throw the Empire into chaos before the human alliance could be formalized. They fear us together, Xylera said when Velric finished his report. They know that Zarethians and humans together would be a strong force. The human fleet is already deploying to defensive positions, Velric reported, without being asked. The moment word of the attack reached their ships, they moved to protect our space. Humans keep their promises, Xylera said, thinking of Marcus and his 5-year mission to deliver a message. When Velric left, Xylera was alone with Ambassador Chun again. The ambassador had been working on her tablet, but now set it aside. Your Majesty, she said carefully, I want to show you something. Marcus wouldn't want me to share this without his permission, but I think you should see it. She pulled up a file on her tablet and handed it to Xylera. It was a video file dated 5 years ago. The timestamp showed it was recorded just days after Theron's death. Xylera pressed play. The video showed a younger Marcus in a hospital bed. He was bandaged and pale, clearly injured. A military counselor sat beside him. Tell me what happened at the recovery site, the counselor said gently. Marcus's voice was rough, barely more than a whisper. We found the flagship's command section floating in the debris field. It was torn apart. We used cutters to get inside. Most of the crew was dead. But when we reached the command bridge, we found him. Prince Theron. He was pinned under debris, barely breathing. The video Marcus touched his chest, where his tags now hung. I tried to get him out. Tried so hard. But the debris was too heavy, and we didn't have the right equipment. He knew he was dying. He knew. What did he say to you? He asked about the battle. I told him the civilians got away. All of them. Safe. He smiled at that. Marcus's voice broke. Then he asked me to do something for him. He said he had a message for his queen. He made me promise to deliver it. Made me swear. Did you promise? Yes, I promised. Then I held his hand while he died. Marcus looked directly at the camera, tears streaming down his face. I held a prince's hand while he died, and I promised him I'd tell his wife that he loved her, that she was strong, that she should live. The counselor's voice was soft. That's a heavy promise. I don't care how heavy it is. I'm going to keep it, no matter what it takes, no matter how long. He deserves that much. The video ended. Xylara stared at the blank screen. Marcus had held Theron's hand, had been the last person to see him alive, had carried that promise, that burden, for 5 years. He requested this diplomatic mission specifically, Ambassador Chun said. When it was announced, he volunteered immediately. He's been trying to reach you for half a decade, Your Majesty. Not because he had to, not because it was his duty, but because he promised a dying man, and humans take those promises seriously. I don't understand, Xylara said. Why would he care so much? He didn't know Theron. They were different species, different worlds. Because that's what humans do, the ambassador said simply. We form connections. We make promises. And we keep them, even when it costs us. Marcus saw a warrior dying far from home. He saw a man who loved his wife. And he decided that love and courage and sacrifice matter, no matter what species they come from. Xylara felt something breaking inside her chest. 5 years of grief, locked away and ignored. 5 years of being a queen and forgetting to be a person. 5 years of surviving but not living. I think, she said slowly, that humans might be wiser than we give them credit for. Ambassador Chun smiled. We have our moments. In the regeneration pod, Marcus stirred. His eyes flickered open, unfocused and confused. Then they found Xylara, and he tried to sit up. Easy, Captain, Xylara said, standing quickly. You're injured. Your Majesty, Marcus's voice was weak. Are you safe? Because of you. You saved my life. Just doing my job. No, Xylara said firmly. You went far beyond your job. You took 3 plasma burns protecting me. You fought when you should have fallen. And before that, you carried a promise across the stars for 5 years. Marcus looked embarrassed. You saw the video. I did. And I want you to know something. Xylara took a breath. This was hard, harder than any state function or diplomatic negotiation. But it was important. Thank you. For being with him at the end. For keeping your promise. For bringing me his words when I needed them most. He was a good man, Marcus said. He deserved better than dying alone in space. He didn't die alone. He died with a human soldier holding his hand. A soldier who understood honor and duty and love. Xylara found herself blinking back tears. Zarethian queens did not cry. But maybe, just this once, it was acceptable. You gave him that gift. You gave me his last words. And today you gave me my life. How do I repay such debts? You don't owe me anything, Your Majesty. I disagree. Xylara straightened. When you have recovered, I am offering you a permanent position. Personal champion and military advisor to the Zarethian throne. You would coordinate our alliance with humanity and help rebuild our military. Marcus's eyes widened. Your Majesty, I'm honored, but I know you look like my husband, Xylara interrupted. I know others will talk, but I'm not offering this because of how you look. I'm offering it because of who you are. A warrior with honor. A man who keeps promises. Someone who understands that protecting others is more important than protecting yourself. Marcus struggled to find words. That's exactly what Theron would have said. I know. Xylara smiled, a real smile for the first time in years. Perhaps that's why I need someone like you nearby. To remind me what it means to be human. To be alive. Not just a queen, but a person. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I accept. On one condition. Name it. You promise to actually live. Like Theron asked. Not just for your empire, but for yourself. Deal? Xylara laughed, and it felt strange and wonderful. Deal, Captain Chun. Ambassador Chun cleared her throat. This is very touching, but Marcus needs rest. Doctor's orders. Of course. Xylora stepped back. But before she left, she looked at Marcus one more time. Sleep well, champion. Tomorrow we have an empire to rebuild and a treaty to finish. Yes, your majesty, Marcus said. Already drifting back to sleep with a smile on his face. As Xylora walked out of the medical wing, she felt lighter than she had in years. The grief was still there, would always be there. But now it was balanced by something else. Hope. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of healing. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in the Grand Council chamber, wearing formal armor that had been specially made for him. It was Zarethian design mixed with human practicality, elegant but functional. The tags of his fallen units still hung around his neck. He had told Xylora he would never remove them. Around him, the council chamber was packed. Every noble house, every military leader, every important figure in the empire had come to witness this moment. The humans were here too, led by Ambassador Chun. Standing alongside their Zarethian allies, at the front of the chamber, on her throne of ancient crystal, sat Queen Xylora. She wore full royal regalia, but her face was different than it had been a month ago. Softer somehow. More alive. Lords and ladies of Zareth, Xylora's voice rang through the chamber. We gather today to formalize an alliance that was written in blood and sacrifice. The Kreeth Dominion threatens us again. They believe we are weak, divided, easy prey. They are wrong. She stood and walked down from her throne. 3 weeks ago, Kreeth assassins infiltrated this very palace. They came to kill me and destroy the alliance before it could begin. They failed because of the courage of human warriors who threw themselves into danger without hesitation. Today, we honor that courage. Xylora stopped in front of Marcus. Captain Marcus Chun, step forward. Marcus did, moving with military precision despite his recent injuries. He still had scars from the plasma burns, would have them forever. But he moved well enough. You fought for us once before, at Zarian 7, Xylora said. You fought for us again in this palace. You have proven your loyalty and courage beyond any doubt. Therefore, by my authority as Queen of the Zarethian Empire, I name you Champion of the Realm and Military Advisor to the Crown. Do you accept this responsibility? I do, Your Majesty, Marcus said clearly. Then kneel. Marcus dropped to one knee. Xylora drew an ornate sword from its sheath, an ancient weapon that had belonged to generations of Zarethian rulers. She touched it to each of his shoulders. Rise, Champion Chun, Defender of Zareth, friend to the crown. Marcus stood, and the chamber erupted in applause. It was not universal. Some nobles looked displeased, worried about a human having so much influence. But most were cheering. They had seen what happened. They knew what Marcus had done. Furthermore, Xylora continued once the applause died down. I propose a formal military alliance between the Zarethian Empire and the Terran Coalition. Not a treaty of convenience, but a true partnership. We will share technology, intelligence, and military resources. Our fleets will train together. Our soldiers will stand together. And when war comes, we will face it together. Lord Velric stepped forward with a datapad. The treaty has been prepared, Your Majesty. It requires approval from the Council. Then let the Council vote, Xylora said. The vote took an hour. There was debate, concern, and discussion. Some houses worried about sharing too much with humans. Others worried about the cost of war. But in the end, the motion passed with strong support. Ambassador Chun signed for humanity. Xylora signed for the Zarethians. It was done. That evening, Xylora found Marcus standing on a balcony overlooking the city. The three suns were setting again, painting everything in beautiful colors. He was out of his formal armor now, wearing simple military fatigues. You don't have to wear that, Xylora said, joining him at the railing. You're a champion now. You could wear noble robes. I'm a soldier, Your Majesty. This feels more honest. Just Xylera when we're alone. No titles. Marcus glanced at her, surprised. That seems inappropriate. Many things we do seem inappropriate to the court. They'll adjust. Xylera looked out at the city. I wanted to thank you. Not as a queen to her champion, but as a person to a friend. You gave me something I thought I had lost. What's that? Hope. The belief that tomorrow might be better than today. She touched the railing, her fingers near his. And you gave me permission to grieve. To remember Theron not with pain but with love. That letter you carried, those words he left me, they set me free. He would be glad, Marcus said softly. From what you've told me about him, he sounds like someone who would want you to be happy. He was. And he was right about many things. He said I was stronger than I believed. He said I should live, not just rule. Xylera turned to face Marcus. You're helping me learn how to do both. I'm just doing what feels right. That is exactly what makes you perfect for this role. Xylera hesitated, then asked the question that had been on her mind for days. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Why did you accept this position? You could have gone home. Returned to Earth. Instead, you're staying here in an alien empire, surrounded by politics and danger. Why? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, at first, it was about the promise. I needed to deliver Theron's message. But then I got here and saw you, saw what you were carrying, all that grief and responsibility. And I recognized it because I've carried the same weight. The survivor's burden. The guilt of living when others died. He turned to look at her directly. And I thought, maybe I can help. Maybe that's why I survived Zarian 7. Not just to deliver a message, but to be here at this moment. When you needed someone who understands loss and duty and the cost of leadership. You think the universe planned this? I don't know about the universe. But I believe things happen for reasons we don't always see at first. I was supposed to be here. And I think you were supposed to find someone who could see past the crown to the person underneath. Xylera felt her breath catch. This human, this warrior from a young species, understood her in ways that few others ever had. Not because he looked like Theron, because he had his own scars, his own losses, his own hard-won wisdom. The court thinks I appointed you because of your resemblance to Theron, she said. I know. Does it bother you? It did at first. Now I realize the resemblance doesn't matter. You're not Theron. You're Marcus. And Marcus is exactly who I need right now. Friends? Marcus asked, offering his hand in the human custom. Xylera took it. His hand was warm, calloused from years of holding weapons. Strong and steady. Friends, she agreed. Then, carefully, and maybe, in time, something more. If you're willing. Marcus's eyes widened. Your Majesty Xylera, I'm honored, but I don't want you to feel obligated. Just because I look like him doesn't mean. This has nothing to do with how you look, Xylera interrupted. This is about who you are. Your courage, your loyalty, your ability to understand pain and still choose hope. Those are the things that matter. I'm human. You're Zarethian. Your people might not accept. My people will learn to accept what I choose, Xylera said firmly. I am their queen, but more importantly, I am a woman who has spent 5 years in darkness. You brought light back into my life. If you're willing to give this a chance, to see where it leads, then I want to try. Marcus looked at their joined hands. Theron asked you to live. I think he'd approve of this. Of you choosing something for yourself instead of just for the Empire. Do you approve? Xylera, Marcus said, squeezing her hand gently. I would be honored to stand by your side. Not as a replacement for what you lost, but as something new. Something we build together. Xylera felt tears in her eyes. She let them fall. A Zarethian queen crying on a balcony with a human champion, breaking every rule of proper behavior. It felt wonderful. "The war is coming," she said. "The Kreeth won't stop. They'll hit us again, harder next time. I know. People will die. Maybe even us. Maybe. But that's tomorrow's problem. Right now, we're alive. We're standing here, together, watching the sun set over a city full of people who need us to be strong." Marcus smiled. "That's enough for today. Humans are very wise about some things. We've had a lot of practice at surviving, mostly by being too stubborn to quit and finding reasons to keep going even when things are hard." "What's your reason?" Xylora asked. Marcus looked at her, and in his eyes she saw warmth and something deeper. Something that might, with time, become love. "Right now? You are." They stood together on the balcony as the sun set and the stars began to appear. Below them, the city lights came on one by one. Human and Zarethian guards patrolled together. Diplomats from both worlds worked on new treaties. Ships from both fleets trained in formation overhead. A month ago, Xylora had been alone, cold, and buried under the weight of her crown. Now she stood with a human warrior who had carried a promise across the stars, who had saved her life, who had reminded her what it meant to live. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." "Thank you for letting me keep my promise," Marcus replied, "and for giving me a new one to keep." "What promise is that?" "To help you live, not just rule. Every single day." Xylora leaned against his shoulder, a casual intimacy that would have been unthinkable weeks ago. But now it felt right, natural, like coming home after a long journey. The war would come. Challenges would arise. The court would gossip and worry. But for now, in this moment, a queen and her champion stood together under the stars. Two warriors who had survived loss and found each other. An ancient empire and a young species, learning to trust, to hope, to build something new. And in the gardens below, where Theron's ashes had been scattered 5 years ago, the flowers bloomed in colors of purple and gold, beautiful in the starlight, alive and growing. The end, but also a beginning.